So today being Tu B'Shvat, or the New Year of Trees, the day of celebrating trees in the Jewish calendar, I wanted to record my gratitude for trees in my life. I was reading recently some Chinese traditional medicine about care of the liver. And the liver in traditional Chinese medicine is associated with the colour green. And so there's a healing method of carefully rubbing the area of the body where the kidney is housed, whilst also meditating on the green of a tree. One of the earliest memories that I have of the strong energy of a tree was a huge conker tree, which it was either me in the pushchair or it could have been perhaps my sister in the pushchair, that we had to bump over the big roots of the conker tree, which was in the corner of our village. And of course, it bore these amazing jewels, wooden jewels, polished conkers, which were just amazing to behold. And then there was another tree which was kind of thin and solitary but very calm, which honestly was one of my best friends at primary school. It was in the corner of the field, the playing field, just inside the school boundary. And it was a maple tree that I called Maud. Later on, often we were coming home in the dark from my great uncle's house. I say often, it was once a year, probably twice a year, and often in the winter. So it was already dark when we left and we were in the car, and there was a road lined with armies of pine trees as we went out of my great uncle's area towards the South Downs. I remember writing a poem. I was probably about age 9, about the armies, the soldiers of the pine trees, the kind of military area anyway near Sandhurst in the UK, and I could feel the strong, defensive or defending energy of those pine trees as we sped by in the car, or I don't think we did speed by, we often broke down on the downs because it was an old car and it was winter. And then also going down, there was a little track which we used to walk down to school, and these were smaller trees, blackthorn, hawthorn, and my mother would part the branches of the trees often in spring to reveal a bird's nest. She truly had the sixth sense of where the nests would be. But that image of the soldiers and the soldierly trees actually reminds me of a conversation that I listened to online. I think it's about a decade ago that it was recorded, between 3 mystics from different traditions. And one of them, the Rabbi Omer Mann, he talked about being in the woods or the forest and how some of the trees being strongly alive and standing tall, and the others already dead or fallen on the ground, but so much part of the ecosystem, so much generating life, there on the forest floor, and how that image, is a good one for blurring the distinction that we like to keep in our mind between life and death. It was a powerful image that has stayed with me. And indeed it was the image of the tree that I was looking for when I began this quite intensive phase of spiritual awakening, or drawing closer in mystical relationship, almost 4 years ago to the day now, which started with a tumult of miracles, but also sight of great evil and a lot of challenge, a lot of difficulty, as well as unbelievable healing, unbelievable revelation of the presence of God. So I'd begun to inventory my body parts. That was the way I decided to structure the notes for my autobiography that I began to write at that time. So I was looking at my feet, and then I was thinking of my hands, and at the same time, I knew there was a kind of healing map that I'd mislaid, and I guess possibly I mislaid it in a previous lifetime, or else it was just buried deep in my unconscious as a gift from the collective psyche, and I do believe from the collective Jewish psyche, because I knew what I needed, and I needed my healing map to guide me as I embarked on that phase of awakening and healing. And indeed I did find it, and it was the Kabbalistic representation of the Tree of Life with the nodes of the Sephirot, and that took me away from my individual human body, which nonetheless, I stayed with in my note-taking, but it took me towards the spiritual map of our physical reality. That was the map that I was looking for, the healing map, as I call it. But it's the Kabbalistic representation of the Tree of Life with the Sephirot. Oh, there was the tree in my grandfather's garden, which was like a light, a lamp, really, or a very generous person, a benefactor. It was a plum tree, and not a huge plum tree, but it was, certainly when my grandfather was elderly, it gave enough shade for him to sit underneath it when he was drinking a glass of beer in summertime. And I don't think it produced plums every year, and I do remember there was some anxious years when my grandfather would have to paint something on the trunk to keep away the parasites or the pests. But when it did bear fruit, it was just incredible. And I would go back to university with a jar of this golden jam that my grandmother had made, and she made many, many jars of jam from the plums on certain summers. It was really abundant. It was beautiful. Its energy was really, really beautiful, golden energy. And that too reminds me of another tree more recently, I was traveling into a place where there was a lot of historical trauma, and I was going in and I was coming out on a daily basis by train, and glimpsed from the train at high speed was this tree that I can only liken to, one of the highest of the angels. It was pure white blossom, and it just shone. I mean, it was incredible, the illumination of this tree, the energy of this tree, as I went in to this place, glimpse from high speed, absolutely like another being, an angel. Which reminds me, of course, of Moses in Numbers, when he sends the spies to check out the land of Canaan, and his question is there a tree there? And that's surely the question in all of our hearts. This question as we head towards the time when we'll all know the presence of divine intelligence much more, as a much stronger reality, enmeshed with reality as we think we know it now. That tree was just incredible. There was another time as well when I was in a place where I really hadn't meant to be and didn't want to be, and I had a visit from my children, and in fact it was my son's birthday, and I didn't have with me a birthday card for him. And we went walking in the grounds of this place where I was, and there was a silver birch tree, and I took a strip of the silver birch paper from the tree and wrote a birthday card to my son. So I'm enormously grateful to that tree. And in fact I have a friend called Bonnie who has given me bookmarks which she's made from silver birch paper, and she's carefully sewn a backing onto the tree, by the very thin tree bark, to make it into a bookmark. So all of those amazing trees. I'm sure there are many more. I feel this is like my Oscars for the trees, and I have forgotten to thank so many people. There are too many trees to thank.